Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. After a largely fine, often sunny week, things are going to take a bit of a change weather-wise as we go into the weekend because there's a front out in the west, and this is going to bring some heavy and at times persistent rain, particularly to western, northwestern parts through tonight and more so into tomorrow. But before that arrives, a lot of dry weather to end the day and through much of the night, and actually a lot of the clouds going to break up, particularly across eastern parts of England. And here with clear skies, temperatures taking a bit of a drop, a bit chilly first thing tomorrow morning, and watch out for some pockets of mist and fog. Elsewhere, a bit more cloud than we've seen through some recent nights, so not turning quite as chilly. And across Northern Ireland, well, it's a wet start to the day. Watch out for some strong winds with that rain that's pushing through. Ahead of that rain, actually there will be a few showery bursts of rain here and there across some southern and central parts of England and Wales. Largely dry though to start the day across parts of northern England and much of Scotland. Just that band of rain I highlighted at the start affecting some western parts of Scotland and much of Northern Ireland. Now that rain is going to gradually shift its way a little bit further eastwards as we go through the day, but it's not going to go through particularly quickly. So it really is across western, southwestern Scotland and eastern Northern Ireland where we're going to see the rainfall totals building up, and we do have a couple of warnings out because some disruption is likely to travel and also a bit of flooding in places as well. Elsewhere across other parts, actually a largely fine day, some sunshine breaking through, and with that in the sunshine, not feeling too bad. Temperatures peaking in the mid to high teens, may just about scrape into the low 20s. That front does eventually push through as we go through later and into Sunday, not bringing a huge amount of rain in the south, but a bit of cloud, a bit of rain lingering in the southeast through Sunday, and then some showery bursts further north. Otherwise, for many, Sunday's looking largely fine. And then as we go through into Monday and Tuesday, we sort of end up with a northwest-southeast split, always drier towards the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, where I speak up for the forgotten majority. Coming up on tonight's show, mandatory digital ID is confirmed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. But will this lead us down a slippery slope that puts our liberty and freedom in the hands of a controlling, overbearing state? And an Afghan man who claimed asylum in the UK, you might have seen this story, while he returned to Afghanistan on holiday. Now, despite Labour admitting today that they've got it wrong on immigration, are they actually going to do what needs to be done to fix our borders? We'll be debating that tonight. And welcome to Two-Tier Britain. Why on earth was a violent criminal who stabbed and slashed at a man spared jail while his victim was convicted of a hate crime for burning a copy of the Quran? Make it make sense. And tonight, in our last section, Matt in Conversation, I'm going to be speaking to a polling expert about that bombshell poll that has rocked Westminster tonight. Labour's annual party conference is about to start. How will Labour react to this survey, which predicts that our next Prime Minister will be Nigel Farage? That's Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, starts right now. Now, I'll also be joined tonight by my top panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster Kai Wilshaw. But as ever, I want to know your views tonight. You can reach us at gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can reach us over on X at GB News. But right now, it is time for the news.
Good evening. The top stories. The Prime Minister says digital ID will be mandatory in order to work in the UK as part of plans to tackle illegal migration. Sir Keir Starmer said the government would introduce a new ID system by 2029, saying it would make it tougher to work in the UK illegally and offer countless benefits to citizens. However, opposition parties argued the proposals would not stop people crossing the Channel in small boats. The Tories have branded the move a desperate gimmick to stop the Channel crossings. A petition urging the government to abandon their plans has now surpassed 1 million signatures. Dozens of diplomats walked out of the UN's Assembly Hall as Israel's Prime Minister took to the podium. As the session's chairman called for order, there were boos and cheers while delegates streamed out. Benjamin Netanyahu used his speech to speak directly to the hostages held in Gaza and terror group Hamas. He also said recognition of a Palestinian state is sheer madness. It's insane and we won't do it, he said, adding that recognition by several other countries is disgraceful. Donald Trump has since spoken about a potential deal on Gaza before he boarded Marine One at the White House. The US president says he believes the deal will get the hostages back and added it's going to be a deal that will end the war. In other news, the man who was wrongly convicted of killing Jill Dando has been charged with rape and indecent assault. Barry George has been charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl almost 40 years ago. The CPS said the charges relate to non-recent allegations that took place in 1987. Mr. George was convicted of the 1999 murder of Jill Dando, but the conviction was overturned on appeal. He was later unanimously acquitted by a jury after a retrial. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister. That is according to a new YouGov poll. According to the polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 326. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader, Mr. Farage, to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. The UK's population jumped by more than 755,000 in the year to June 2024. That is the second highest annual rise on record. New figures from the ONS show 1.23 million migrants arrived in the country during that period, while under 500,000 left. The data also reveals deaths now significantly outnumber births, with migration driving population growth under Labour's government. And former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades and served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. His grandson praised him in a statement, saying, "Like so many of us, I greatly benefited from Ming's advice and guidance over the years," also praising him as a warm and caring friend and colleague. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Good evening and welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now today, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer confirmed that he will be introducing digital ID here in Britain. Take a look at this.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
Well, what do I think about this? Here's what I think. 3 words. No, no, no. There is no democratic mandate for digital ID in this country. Nobody asked for it. Nobody voted for it. This was not in the Labour Party's manifesto ahead of the 2024 general election. Indeed, it's now become like those other policies that have been imposed on us from above. Mass uncontrolled immigration, broken borders, two-tier justice. Nobody voted for those either, yet still they were imposed on the British people by a Labour government that is completely out of touch. Of course, digital ID is not going to help solve the illegal migration crisis. Anybody who knows anything about that crisis knows this to be true. Just look at many other countries around the world that have comprehensive identity cards, comprehensive identity checking systems. Look at Germany, look at France. Are they free of the scourge of illegal migration? I don't think so. This is not going to do what Keir Starmer is telling you it's going to do. If we want to sort out the borders, if we want to control illegal migration, we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We need to repeal Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, which entrenches the ECHR into domestic law. We need to detain and deport anybody who arrives in this country illegally. And we need to end this regime of welfare and housing for people who break our laws. But let's be real. What this digital ID is really all about isn't illegal migration. It's about control. It's about state overreach. It is about people within the state, unelected state bureaucrats, wanting to be able to control your life. That is what this is about. The English conservative philosopher Roger Scruton said it best when he said, the leftist project is always about replacing civil society with a state bureaucracy, making you dependent upon the state. Because if you're dependent upon the state controls you. But this is not what Britain is about. This is not what England is about. The historian Macaulay said the history of England is a history of liberty, the history of freedom. But look at what we have around us today. Non-crime hate incidents, the Online Safety Act, a dodgy new definition of Islamophobia, diversity, equality and inclusion policies in our taxpayer-funded public institutions, and now digital ID. All of it designed to control and curtail the national conversation. What on earth happens if you happen to hold the wrong political opinions, the wrong political beliefs? What on earth happens if somebody in the state decides that you've done the wrong thing or you've gone to the wrong place and they're able to control your digital ID? We must oppose this. We must push back against this. That's why I personally was delighted to sign that petition that has been doing the rounds and already has well over 1 million signatures, because ultimately this country, these islands, are rooted in freedom, in individual liberty, and they've always pushed back against the state. And we need to do that once again. As always, I want to hear your views tonight. I want you to write in. You can find me on social media. You can find, obviously, GB News at GB News. I want to hear your views, so do keep them coming in. I'm now going to turn to my guest from Reform UK, Gawain Towler. You've written eloquently on the issue of digital ID. What do you think this is really all about? Because the timing here, Gawain, is pretty curious.
It's clear that this is something that is in Starmer's back pocket. You've had Blair banging on about it, and he tried in 2005. We fought it off then, and it dropped it in 2010. And then you had this weekend, you had William Hague telling us that there's no possible complaint about having digital ID. And I've been speaking to friends on the continent, and they, well, they've got it. It's their tradition. It's part of what they do, but it is not part of what we do. And what do I think it is? I think it's more to do with political difficulty. As I say, it's been in his back pocket for a while. He's brought it out when there's political difficulty, just before conference. Now, it is true that currently polling says that the British people would approve of digital ID.
We have had YouGov polling this evening, a snap poll, suggesting that only 42% of Brits would support digital ID.
Well, it depends how the question is framed, as you know. But the point is that we are a common law country, and our relationship with the state is very different from our friends on the continent. For us, and for our tradition, we are allowed to do anything and be anything we are only forbidden from doing things if the state forbids it. We're allowed to do anything, whereas on our continental friends, it's the other way around. And so the bottom line is, this is a deeply un-English measure. It goes completely against sovereignty, both personal and national. It is something that comes in with the human rights concept that comes from abroad. We do not need this. We can live our lives. I do not need proof to be an Englishman.
The other thing is, historically, people have always said in Britain and England, our freedoms, our liberties come from below. They haven't come from the state. Yet here we are looking at another top-down project.
The concept of a free-born Englishman predates democracy by hundreds of years.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, look at how the state has managed some of these big projects. High Speed 2, you think about Trident, you think about the NHS IT programme. They've never delivered a big project like this on time and on budget.
I don't want the argument about ID cards and digital ID cards being bogged down in practical problems, in the sense of the failures of IT, the failures of the government to do these things, Horizon, this, that and the other. I don't want to be bogged down to that. I actually want it to be a much more important issue, and that is who we are, who the state is, where we sit, and how we can control it. And I do not ever want to be controlled by the state. I want the state to be controlled by us, the ordinary people of this country.
Well, just stay right there, Gawain Towler. I want to bring in tonight's panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster Kai Wilshaw. Lara Brown, what's your initial reaction to why on earth Keir Starmer has decided to go hard on this issue of digital ID?
Gawain's made the civil liberties point. I agree with him. But I think we should ask ourselves the question of what the government are doing right now, because the justification for digital ID is to control the border, but they don't have a deportation strategy. So if they identify someone's working illegally, they have nothing they can do about that. They've got loads of countries that won't take people back. They haven't solved the visas. They're in the ECHR. So we're doing all of this bureaucracy. We're putting people's data at risk of a cyber attack for absolutely no gain. I don't see what this achieves.
Kai, are you a supporter of digital ID?
Yes, in theory, and for all the reasons that actually we see day in, day out, and that the British people see, that operating our public services based on mounds and mounds of paper, making it so difficult for anybody to access anything, to the point where they completely disengage, has eroded trust over decades in the British state. Now, for the same great reasons that 20 years ago this was suggested, we should obviously implement the system. It makes common sense.
After the war, we had ID during the war for actually serious reasons, wartime stuff, and then it was thrown out. The reason it was thrown out is because the British people did not like having the papers, please culture. In fact, the police themselves argued fiercely against it to get rid of ID cards because they did not like the relationship that they were building with the public. Give a man a uniform, give them the ability to say, papers, please, and they become something that we are not comfortable with as British people.
But what's changed since then is, one, just the sheer scale of how much people interact with government, to the point where these crunch points happen, these bottlenecks happen day in, day out.
Maybe we shouldn't be interacting with government quite so much.
But then the second, perhaps, but that's a different debate, but the second thing is that digital access to services has become so much easier now that this would allow government to tread much more lightly without having that papers.
You believe it would tread
mentality.
lightly? You saw what happened in Canada. You saw what happened in Canada when the people who protested the government's attitude were debanked, were closed out because they were able to do so. I do not want I do not want Jeremy Corbyn and the lefties to find themselves locked out by a right-wing government because they don't like their policies. I really don't, because we're a country of liberty.
Yeah, Lara Brown, there is something concerning for people here around. We have seen the state do two-tier COVID passports. We have seen the state try to push for two-tier sentencing guidelines. That is a source of concern for many people.
Yeah, I think there's two things here. The first is nobody has ever voted for this. This has never been in a winning manifesto in recent years. Labour did not say they're going to do this, and they've now gone back to the Blair playbook with no announcement. But secondly, I think this is true. I am currently very nervous about the actions of the state. I am seeing on a weekly basis people arrested for social media posts. I'm seeing a sort of situation where actual violence is being punished far less than speech crimes. And therefore, it's very difficult for me to ever candidates giving the state more power of my life and more information about me when I don't trust them to implement justice.
Guy, there is that issue here around trust. There's also some concern over who exactly is pushing this policy. Tony Blair's got his fingerprints all over it. The Tony Blair Institute is being supported financially by some very prominent billionaires within the tech industry. Now, usually people on the left sit on my show and they say, we don't want to have billionaires with their fingerprints all over our democracy, thank you very much. Well, where are those voices now?
But this is the reality of the world we live in. Big technology firms run these services that all of us use, frankly, and we give our data to, by the way, willingly, every single minute of the day. So the idea that this makes it some sort of nefarious scheme, when in fact we all know that these big tech firms sponsor all sorts of different things.
I would like to see my party say, if we get into power, we will tear this down. And all those massive tech companies who are licking their lips with the huge contracts they're going to get should get a comeuppance.
Yeah.
I do not want global tech companies to be making millions, billions off the British people in order to close them down.
Absolutely. Can I just quickly ask you, before I quickly come back to the panel, is this going to be Keir Starmer's poll tax moment?
I'm not sure. Possibly. I mean, the speed in which that petition has gone to 1.3 million in 24 hours is astonishing. I don't think any petition's ever gone that quicker.
Lara Brown?
I'm not sure he'll ever pull this off. I think it'll be really hard to get through Parliament. The tech will be impossible. There'll be too many privacy concerns. This will rumble on for years. I'm not sure what will actually happen.
And the House of Lords doesn't have to, because it is not in the manifesto.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Salisbury Convention does not wash.
Yeah, we're out of time for now. That is a critical point, though, and one I've not heard made today so far. Well, look, at GB News, we want to hear what you think at home. Every day we're going to be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking this: are digital IDs an attack on our freedom? Scan that QR code in the bottom right of your screen and cast your vote, because we want to hear from you. For all of our latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll. And we'll see you in 1 minute.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast
every day from 6 a.m.
So, it is really, really tough, but it's also tough for people who are blind, people who are like pushing buggies, wheelchair users. I mean, my late father was a wheelchair user, and, back in the day, we'd have to sort of get him off the road, and then we'd be in the road, and then we'd have to get him back up onto the pavement again. And that's a big price to pay for somebody who's not prepared to walk around the block and think they have the right to, park on the pavement.
Maria, how do you think it should work? Do you think this needs to be a national ban on pavement parking, or do you think it should be led by councils, so councils decide area by area where you're allowed to park?
I think it should be a mix. I think what we should do is have a blanket ban on pavement parking, and then what councils can do is, there's certain roads, there's one here in Exeter where the road is very narrow and the pavements are very wide. I'm not quite sure why, but it's perfectly safe to park on there. So like a street like that would be fine. And I think one of the problems at the moment is legislation. It's just so unclear, because there's this rule which says that you must not park on the pavement in London and Scotland, but you should not do it elsewhere. So it becomes a bit of a moral maze. And I think that, just to make that clearer about what people should do, because a lot of people sort of think, well, I can do it. And of course, traffic wardens can't do anything about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, earlier this week, Reform UK announced that they would abolish something called indefinite leave to remain, which gives migrants the right to qualify for permanent settlement here in the UK after 5 years. That's if they win the next general election, of course. Meanwhile, today, Sir Keir Starmer has admitted that the left, the Labour Party, has so far got it wrong on immigration. So why won't Labour try and solve the crisis?
Migration is a massive driver of global insecurity. It undermines our ability to control who comes here. And that makes...
Well, what about actions that might actually make a difference, like leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, for example? This is how absurd our border crisis has now become, because we learned this week that an Afghan who arrived on a small boat was granted asylum here. He said that Afghanistan had become much too dangerous for him to stay, and he then returned to Afghanistan for an 8-week holiday, which he documented in detail on social media. I've looked at the pictures myself. Now, Reform's bold new plans around indefinite leave to remain have clearly got Labour running scared. But what is the government actually going to do to tackle Britain's immigration crisis? Joining us now is former Labour Party advisor, Stella Chantakido. Welcome, friend of the channel, friend of the show. Massive conference for the Labour Party. Keir Starmer coming out saying they got it wrong on immigration. So what are they going to do to get it right?
I'm not sure they got it wrong on immigration. Labour has been in power for just 1 year, and they have been doing exactly as they said. They have been slashing net migration. They have been dealing with the small boats crisis. They have been reforming the skilled visa scheme. I think that there is still work to be done, and they are doing it. Skilled visas have fallen, applications have fallen, not applications, the applications that have been granted have fallen by 73%. They are doing pretty well, I would say, Matt.
Numbers of small boats have never been higher. Use of hotels up 8%. They're taking the people of Epping to court to forcibly reopen an asylum hotel. The British people out there are still spending £5.7 million a day on asylum hotels. And we've just discovered today, legal migration is now responsible for 98% of all population growth in this country. The biggest period of population growth we've had for 75 years, right? 2023 to 2025, the biggest period of population growth we've ever had. My question is this: Who voted for that?
So presumably you are incredibly in favour of digital IDs, which Keir Starmer
I very strongly oppose digital IDs.
If you want illegal immigration to go down and you want only people who have the right to work here to be here, then presumably you would want the government to do the actual policy that is going to bring that. Because otherwise, you just want to support empty rhetoric and slogans. Because the only thing that is going to stop people from coming here, from wanting to come here, is if they know that they will not be able to work. And if there are digital IDs in place, then people will not be able to work illegally.
I mean, would you say that Germany has an illegal migration problem?
You should ask a German politician.
Well, I would say it's pretty well documented that Germany has been struggling with illegal migration, as has France. Both of those have very robust, strong identity checking
Denmark
systems.
also does, and you always say that we need to emulate Denmark in terms of immigration. Estonia has digital IDs. Australia, which a lot of right-wingers want to emulate when it comes to immigration, they have digital IDs. But I'll tell you what's my actual problem with this toxic debate about immigration. We started talking about illegal immigration. That's what Nigel Farage was talking about a year ago. It was about illegal immigrants. We've moved since then. It's now about legal immigrants.
Yes.
It's now about people who came here legally. They had the right to stay here. They got indefinite leave to remain legally. And now people like Nigel Farage and the Reform Party want to take that right away from them. And I say from them, I should correct myself. I'm an immigrant myself. And there was about a few hours when Reform had to clarify that this is not going to apply to EU citizens as well, who have settled status. But it was a question. And it is my presumption that a lot of people in the Reform Party, if they had it their way, they would also include EU citizens, because, as you said, this is what people voted for. Brexit, they voted for EU immigrants to be able to kick them out.
Nobody in this country voted for the Boris wave. They were lied to. The manifesto was very explicit. It said the Conservative Party will lower the overall numbers. They lied to the British people. So what Nigel Farage has actually done is he has had the courage to say we need to restore trust in politics by reversing this policy that nobody voted for. All he's saying is you've got to speak English fluently. You've got to play by the rules. You've got to be a net contributor. You've got to actually make a contribution to this country. You've got to work. You can't just live on welfare. Somebody like yourself will be completely unaffected by this. You could become a citizen over the longer term. I mean, I'm not sure necessarily I'd be massively supportive of more left-wing voices in the country, but there you go. But I think indefinite leave to remain is completely bonkers.
But
it's going to cost the British people £200 billion over the coming years.
And as a matter of fact, I can apply, and I am actually, literally this week, I started looking into applying for the British citizenship and taking life in the UK tests online, because I'm genuinely, I do not want to know, I do not even want to contemplate what would happen if, for whatever reason, I lost my right to be here. And this is what people are missing here. We keep on talking about immigration in this, as if immigrants are faceless numbers. And this is not what's happening. You are talking about real people with real love and affections and attachments about this country. And I understand.
Who are also mainly not contributing to the economy.
There will be people watching this who are thinking, OK, so what? Send her back. Amazing. That's what I wanted all along. But you know what? This really hurts me, because there are so many immigrants like me who are being stigmatized by this, who came here, who love this country, who have made this country our home, who have feelings of attachment for this place and for these people. And we are being talked about as if we are scoundrels, as if we are not humans.
OK, well, let's bring in the panel, because I'd like to convey the point that I feel just as emotional about preserving the right and dignity of the British people. Lara Brown, we just showed people a chart at home, the absolutely astonishing increase in net migration that's happened, particularly since Boris Johnson. Nigel Farage has come out this week, so let's scrap indefinite leave to remain. Let's reverse the Boris wave. I mean, he's on to a winner, isn't he?
I think we need to have a practical, non-emotional discussion about this. Indefinite leave to remain was not a system designed to cope with the levels of immigration we've had in the last 5 years. 3.8 million people have come to the country since the end of COVID. And it's not realistic that we can give all of those people an indefinite leave to remain in the UK and to claim benefits and maybe get a state pension at some point. we fundamentally, whatever you think about the fact, can't afford it. So you want to focus on a system that will bring the best and brightest people here and require assimilation. Indefinite leave to remain is basically automatic. Up to 5 years, you can apply and you can get it. What I think we need to see is a system where you're required to be a net contributor, to have committed no crimes, and to pass some sort of assimilation test, because integration is something that's been completely overlooked, and ILR makes that much worse. And that's the reform I think that reform is starting to get towards and we need to talk about.
So, Kai, when on earth did we enter the galaxy where speaking the national language fluently, committing no crime, making a contribution to the economy, working, not living on welfare, when did that become controversial?
I don't think it is controversial.
Well,
I don't
everyone on
think
the left seems to be losing their minds.
Is saying that it's controversial. I think the right likes to cherry pick and make out that all migrants are not assimilating, that they don't speak English, and to try and create a bogeyman of
it's
migrants.
Not a bogeyman.
And that's exactly what Stella is saying. But I think reform are misfiring here. Because I think the vast majority of British people know and believe that immigrants broadly contribute to this society, want to be part of Britain, and the fact is they know them. They're their neighbours, they're their friends, they're people that they interact with every single day, and this sort of creep towards looking at legal migration, looking at kicking people out who've been here for plenty of time and contributed to British society, I think the British people will take against that, and I think yes, it's important to have a non-emotional discussion around policy, but I think this will become quite an emotional one for lots of people, millions and millions of people across this country, and I think reform are actually onto a loser here, Matt.
But Kai, just a second. If you believe that people are contributing and they're assimilating and they're adding to British life, wouldn't it be very easy for them to get a visa every 5 years or to pass a citizenship test to move on that way? If you believe that it's so positive, why do we need this automatic indefinite leave to remain, which doesn't have any qualification hurdles?
The fact is, I don't believe in reversing policies that mean then that millions of people are kicked out of a country. That leads to complete lack of trust in government, complete lack of trust in Britain as a nation, as a country of sort of goodwill and an honest actor. I mean, to undermine that entirely by kicking millions of people out based on a policy of a previous government, I think is ludicrous.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that completely undermines the point.
Kai, what you're saying is we should prioritise the rights of foreign nationals over the rights of British people.
No,
the British people put their trust in the Conservative government and Boris Johnson to lower the overall numbers. They did the opposite.
Over 80% of the public believes that someone who has lived here for 5 years or less and who has worked and has paid into taxes should have access to benefits. Lara, if I had to apply for a visa, I would be out. I don't qualify for a visa, because the criteria we have for a visa are very strict. This is the reality. And I'm probably, for now, I'm okay, but this is the first time when you have, if reform was in government and they did this, it would be unprecedented action of taking the rights away from people who are already here. Countries, of course, have a right to change their immigration policy and to decide who is going to come in and out in the future. But retroactively taking rights away...
I'm going to respond to that, sorry. People who are here, who are contributing to the economy, who are speaking English fluently, OK, who are playing by the rules, they will be able to remain in the country to apply for a 5-year...
I don't qualify for a visa.
To apply... Well, that's your problem. But people will be able to apply for a 5-year renewable visa.
I would be rejected. If I applied right now for a visa, I would be rejected.
This is not only about an individual case. The principle, what you're saying is it's terrible to look retrospectively at things and to say, actually, we're going to change the system. I've not heard anybody in this debate so far go back to the British people who were sold a lie. And it is right that we correct that and make the system be responsive to the people who actually pay for
You
the
say
system.
that you want this debate to not be emotional and to not be about personal individuals specifically. But I see journalists who I work with and I interact with on a weekly basis who are posting on Twitter saying that we should not allow foreign individuals to work in parliament, to work for our government, to stand as politicians. So these people are directly saying that people like me should not exist. And that's fine. There will be people watching with this who will say, yes, Stella, that's fair enough. We don't want you to be doing that. Why would you be... There are people who say, why do we have this foreigner talking about our politics? Well, I'm sorry, but I really love Britain. It is my home. I have a bloody Union Jack flag in my bedroom, and I have done this before it was fashionable.
So you could stay and apply for a visa and then
And
you
get
could...
rejected, and then get deported, and then have the life that I have worked with throughout my adult life, lose it overnight.
I'm sorry, but why on earth would you be rejected?
Because I do not qualify for a visa. The visa qualifications, what they were saying is that they wanted to be so that you need to be making at least 60K a month, a year.
They said they were going to increase the salary thresholds.
Yes,
Listen,
to 60K.
The debate will carry on because we've run out of time, unfortunately. After the break, we're going to be looking at two-tier Britain. Why? Because a violent criminal, I'm going to show you this, it's pretty horrifying stuff, actually, stabbed and slashed at a man who had been burning a copy of the Quran. Well, while that guy was charged with a hate crime, the guy who was stabbing him and attacking him in the street, he didn't get any prison time at all. Make it make sense. We're going to be talking about this case. I'm going to show you the footage. It's pretty alarming in a minute.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're wondering where's good for the weather or heading south during the next few days, be aware there's a next hurricane approaching Portugal whilst it's staying breezy through Greece, particularly the Greek islands. Nothing too unusual about that. But for Italy, increasingly unsettled, some heavy rain and thunderstorms, particularly towards the south, and for Sicily. Across Iberia, settled on Saturday, but here's that ex-hurricane likely to bring some strong winds and heavy rain into Portugal in particular later in the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Good evening. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. After a largely fine, often sunny week, things are going to take a bit of a change weather-wise as we go into the weekend because there's a front out in the west, and this is going to bring some heavy and at times persistent rain, particularly to western, northwestern parts through tonight and more so into tomorrow. But before that arrives, a lot of dry weather to end the day and through much of the night, and actually a lot of the clouds going to break up, particularly across eastern parts of England. And here with clear skies, temperatures taking a bit of a drop, a bit chilly first thing tomorrow morning, and watch out for some pockets of mist and fog. Elsewhere, a bit more cloud than we've seen through some recent nights, so not turning quite as chilly. And across Northern Ireland, well, it's a wet start to the day. Watch out for some strong winds with that rain that's pushing through. Ahead of that rain, actually there will be a few showery bursts of rain here and there across some southern and central parts of England and Wales. Largely dry though to start the day across parts of northern England and much of Scotland. Just that band of rain I highlighted at the start affecting some western parts of Scotland and much of Northern Ireland. Now that rain is going to gradually shift its way a little bit further eastwards as we go through the day, but it's not going to go through particularly quickly. So it really is across western, southwestern Scotland and eastern Northern Ireland where we're going to see the rainfall totals building up, and we do have a couple of warnings out because some disruption is likely to travel and also a bit of flooding in places as well. Elsewhere across other parts, actually a largely fine day, some sunshine breaking through, and with that in the sunshine not feeling too bad. Temperatures peaking in the mid to high teens, may just about scrape into the low 20s. That front does eventually push through as we go through later and into Sunday, not bringing a huge amount of rain in the south, but a bit of cloud, a bit of rain lingering in the southeast through Sunday, and then some showery bursts further north. Otherwise, for many, Sunday's looking largely fine. And then as we go through into Monday and Tuesday, we sort of end up with a northwest-southeast split, always drier towards the southeast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, if you have ever doubted whether we have a two-tier society, consider this. We've seen Lucy Connolly jailed for 31 months for a tweet, and now I'm going to show you some footage that is, unfortunately, quite graphic. A man viciously attacked by a knife man on the streets of central London for burning his own copy of the Quran. Watch this.
Oh, you got a knife, man. Come for don't come to me.
From here.
Listen, I'm just filming,
You're
yeah?
burning the Quran.
No, you shouldn't be. Listen.
It's my religion. You don't burn Quran. You don't burn.
He just did. He's done it.
This criminal stabbed and slashed at a complete stranger with a knife while saying, "I'm going to kill you." So why was he charged with the least serious offence, common assault, and not, for example, ABH? Even more shockingly, he will serve no prison time. Meanwhile, his victim was convicted of a hate crime for burning his own copy of the Quran, which could easily look like blasphemy laws being introduced through the back door. So is two-tier justice now alive and kicking in modern Britain? Well, I'm joined by tonight's top panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster, Kai Wilshaw. Kai, actually, let me start with you for a minute. The footage is very shocking. The case is unbelievably shocking. I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm also not comfortable with the idea of sending 4 million Muslims in this country a message that if you attack somebody, if you are physically aggressive towards somebody because you feel offended, that actually you won't go to prison, you will not be jailed. To most people out there, this case, I would put it to you, looks completely insane.
No, I think that's completely wrong. And actually what I think people would see if they bothered to read into the details of the case was somebody who entirely regrets his actions. And it was not so much about being offended by what was happening, but being incensed and reacting in a way that was completely disproportionate to the way he's behaved for many, many years being part of this country. His behaviour prior to this has been exemplary, and the judge ruled that there would be no benefit and no chance, I think there was almost no chance of reoffending if they were at all. So why send this person to prison just to send a message?
I understand.
When our prisons are overloaded.
I understand you and I are in different places in the political landscape, and I understand that this is television, but let's just look each other in the eye and just have a conversation for a minute. Lucy Connolly got nearly 3 years in prison for writing something on a tweet which she later regretted. Okay, and she had lots of mitigating circumstances. She lost a child, but she was a mother, she was a wife, she contributed to her community, she was a childminder. How on earth do you explain the radically different outcome of these two cases, where somebody who has a knife and is stabbing at somebody in the street and does not get any prison time?
The same way that we've had this discussion again and again, right? Over 1 million arrests every year. Of course, if you cherry pick two cases that are entirely different people, entirely different crimes, entirely different sentencing guidelines, of course you can make a case that there's two-tier, but that is just creating a fiction for people and getting them angry for no reason. And Lucy Connolly shouldn't have been in jail. You know I think that.
Lara Brown, two-tier Britain is fiction.
I mean, I have to completely disagree with you, Kai. Let's look at the facts of this case. This man saw Hamid Koskan burning a Quran. He then went back into his house. He retrieved a serrated bread knife from his house, went back out, and then slashed at Hamid Koskan multiple times, severely injuring him before someone intervened. That is a man who's committed a violent crime. I do not care if he claims in court to regret that crime. That is someone who needs to serve prison time. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know why they chose common assault rather than ABH or even attempted murder, which that video looks like. But I am terrified of a world where you can commit a violent crime like that and you can remain on the streets as a threat to others. I do not believe that he won't reoffend. He was motivated clearly by his faith, and why wouldn't he do it again?
I mean, look, we're both talking as sort of observers of this case. And it's quite difficult to tell from... We all know that cherry-picking bits of videos or whatever, not being there and not being in the weeds of the detail, we can't make a judgment as to whether that's right or wrong. But what we're talking about, this idea of two-tier justice, the idea of cherry-picking lots of different cases and trying to make it out that some people are being treated worse than others, when the fact is, what we really should be talking about is the justice system is broken. The criminal justice system is broken. So let's talk about how we fix that, rather than trying to whip people up into a frenzy about two entirely separate cases, or trying to make out that there's racially sort of aggravated arrests that are taking place, or people being treated very differently because of social media activity, which is a tiny minority, a few handful of cases. I mean, let's have a real conversation about it to change the justice system in this country.
I'm glad you said we need a real conversation, because after the break it is time for Matt in Conversation, and I'm going to be talking about this bombshell new survey just ahead of Labour's conference. It's not an ideal backdrop for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, I tell you that. We're going to be looking at the numbers, which shows exactly why Nigel Farage is going to become the next Prime Minister of this country. It's from YouGov, it's an MRP. I'll talk you through it in 1 minute.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now it's time for that time of the show where it is Matt in conversation with a top expert. This week, we're going to be getting stuck into this bombshell YouGov MRP poll, which spells bad news for the Labour government. Very bad news indeed. This major new survey, it's an MRP, which means it's a bit more sophisticated than the usual poll, puts Reform UK just 15 seats away from achieving an overall majority, with 311 of the 326 seats required. This, of course, is up significantly from the 271 projected seats for Reform by a similar poll back in June. And there are some big names predicted to lose their seats in Parliament under these projections. Angela Rayner, Bridget Phillipson, Ed Miliband, Priti Patel and Robert Jenrick. Now, this is historic as Labour meet for their annual party conference. I'm sure they're going to be absolutely knocked sideways by this survey. Reform and Farage will, of course, be very, very happy as their momentum shows no sign of slowing down. Well, joining us now to help us make sense of what's going on in British politics is Emma Schubert, Data and Insights Manager at the Adam Smith Institute. Emma, what is the big takeaway from this poll? There will be people out there who will say, well, yeah, there's still a long way to the next general election, but it does provide some pretty awkward mood music for Keir Starmer and the Labour government.
Right, I think that's true. I think they're right to say that we're a long way out. So I think the minutiae of this poll, as in exactly what party is losing what seats and how many, is less interesting. But I think because it's a YouGov MRP, which is considered the gold standard as far as election prediction is concerned, it has a lot of credibility to the fact that the Reform surge is not going anywhere. In fact, it's only getting stronger. Now, as you said, it would really spell the collapse of the Labour Party, which I imagine they're thinking of ahead of the upcoming conference. I believe it would be the largest upset, as it projected 267 lost Labour seats in UK political history. I think the last time Labour lost so many seats was in 1931, and they lost 235. So that eclipses even that. So, as you say, it would be massive.
And that's a really critical point, isn't it? Because Reform pick up most of their seats, not from the Conservatives, who, of course, are arguably on life support and would go to fourth place in this MRP poll. They'd fall behind the Liberal Democrats. But Reform are picking up most of their seats from Labour in places like the Red Wall, Wales, parts of eastern England, especially the northeast of England. What do you read into that? What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, Keir Starmer personally is polling historically badly. No Prime Minister has polled as badly as he is right now. I mean, Boris Johnson didn't poll as badly ever. Rishi Sunak didn't poll as badly ever. So clearly it's a crisis for the Labour Party. Now, in terms of how many votes they'll actually pick up in certain red wall districts, et cetera, it's very difficult to tell. We should definitely pay attention to this poll, but I think in general what we should take away is the Reform surge isn't really going anywhere.
OK, let me just bring in the panel here, Lara Brown and Kai Wilshaw. Kai, this is really bleak mood music for Labour as they meet in Liverpool. So many big names on that hit list now look set to lose their seats. I mean, these are, members of the cabinet.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the mood at Labour going to be this weekend?
Well, it's pretty disastrous polling. It's to be expected. But when you look past the cabinet names, what's really interesting right now is an MRP coming out means that as an MP, wherever you are in the country, you can sort of get a sense of what might happen if things continue the way they are. Now, the Parliamentary Labour Party is already, quite frankly, furious. They have been for weeks at the way they've been treated. But I also know that over the summer, lots of them have been looking at these polls and looking at, OK, well, I'm 1,000, I keep a majority of 1,000 and so on. So this really will put them in a position where they're thinking, will I make it? And what does that mean for their behaviour in terms of how they stay in line with the Labour government?
Laura Brown, the Tories collapsing here, people like Robert Jenrick losing their seats. I mean, is this going to add to this potential flood of Conservatives over to Reform?
It might do. I think that's very likely. Kai is completely right. MRPs make MPs nervous in Parliament. You always see when an MRP comes out, they start going to their leader and saying, how are you going to fix this? We had a bad MRP back in June for Labour and the Conservatives. This is another one. I think it does risk more defections. But I think one question, let's say this happened. I know it's 4 years out. Where's Nigel getting those 15 seats from? Are we looking at a coalition? Has he got an answer to that question? I'd be keen to hear.
Very briefly, if you could, Emma, what would your advice be to Keir Starmer in Liverpool if you were presenting this poll to him? What should he be doing?
Well, we asked people this question at the Adam Smith Institute, and basically he needs to figure out how to solve the crime crisis, he needs to figure out the migration crisis, and probably figure out how to stop censoring people online for what they say.
Well, there you go. Nice and easy list of things for Keir Starmer, the interesting Prime Minister of our country, to get working on. Well, coming up after Friday Night with me is, of course, Patrick Christys tonight. Well, what is coming up on your show tonight after me, Patrick?
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to my live studio audience. Oh, it is good to be back. Thank you very much, everyone. Well, we're going in strong. Who here doesn't like the idea of a digital ID? Yes, I don't think that's going to be very popular, is it? We've also got those, those really poor, desperate Afghan asylum seekers that needed asylum. Turns out they've been going back on holiday to Afghanistan. So there you go. Can't be in that much trouble, can they? So we're going to be talking about all that as well. And they are eating the swans, by the way. They are, and we've got proof of it. The swans they're eating the swans. They're eating the swans, OK? They are. So we're going to be talking about all of that and a little bit more two-tier justice for you. One bloke got his door knocked by police officers in the dead of night for posting F Hamas, OK? However, if you try to stab a man who was burning a copy of the Quran, you walk free from prison. So, remarkable state of affairs in Britain, isn't it? What a day to do it. We're going to cover the absolute lot of it. Are you up for it? Yeah! All right, then. Well, in that case, get ready for Patrick Christys tonight. I'll see you in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. After a largely fine, often sunny week, things are going to take a bit of a change weather-wise as we go into the weekend, because there's a front out in the west, and this is going to bring some heavy and at times persistent rain, particularly to western, northwestern parts through tonight and more so into tomorrow. But before that arrives, a lot of dry weather to end the day and through much of the night, and actually a lot of the clouds going to break up, particularly across eastern parts of England. And here with clear skies, temperatures taking a bit of a drop, a bit chilly first thing tomorrow morning, and watch out for some pockets of mist and fog. Elsewhere, a bit more cloud than we've seen through some recent nights, so not turning quite as chilly. And across Northern Ireland, well, it's a wet start to the day. Watch out for some strong winds with that rain that's pushing through. Ahead of that rain, actually, there will be a few showery bursts of rain here and there across some southern and central parts of England and Wales. Largely dry, though, to start the day across parts of northern England and much of Scotland. Just that band of rain I highlighted at the start affecting some western parts of Scotland and much of Northern Ireland. Now that rain is going to gradually shift its way a little bit further eastwards as we go through the day, but it's not going to go through particularly quickly. So it really is across western, southwestern Scotland and eastern Northern Ireland where we're going to see the rainfall totals building up, and we do have a couple of warnings out because some disruption is likely to travel and also a bit of flooding in places as well. Elsewhere across other parts, actually a largely fine day, some sunshine breaking through, and with that in the sunshine, not feeling too bad. Temperatures peaking in the mid to high teens, may just about scrape into the low 20s. That front does eventually push through as we go through later and into Sunday, not bringing a huge amount of rain in the south, but a bit of cloud, a bit of rain lingering in the southeast through Sunday, and then some showery bursts further north. Otherwise, for many, Sunday's looking largely fine. And then as we go through into Monday and Tuesday, we sort of end up with a northwest-southeast split, always drier towards the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank